Hello, everyone. Who owns the Magdalene narrative? This is a question we're going to look at and more just after this intro video.
Welcome to the Black Madonna Codes, a weekly conversation for women leaders who know the sacred feminine cannot be contained, sanitized, or erased.
Through honest conversation about how the Magdalene principles are woven through history, race, spirituality, and current lived experience, we're widening the story and honoring the many cultures that have carried this wisdom.
We're inviting you to open your heart with us as we explore the Magdalene path with curiosity, humility, and reverence for the lineages we carry.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Black Madonna Codes.
We're back.
We're back. We took a little break, couple weeks. We're back. We're back on track. Deidre had a lovely visit to the East Coast, and how are you doing today, Deidre?
Fantastico. I'm living happily ever after. That's my new standard answer.
Oh,
I'm living happily ever after. That's what I'm doing. What are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm like, I don't know. I'm in a grind or something. I'm like, oh, I need a better answer. What's your answer?
Feel free. Put it in your pocket.
We're so excited today to bring this part of the conversation. Who really owns the Magdalene narrative? And I feel like personally, if we're not asking, it's actually new. It's new for me to ask who owns the narrative. That's not a question that I was taught how to ask, because as a white person, I typically identify with who owns the narrative. That's not been the case in my recent years, but in my upbringing, I never even thought to ask who owns the narrative. Has that been your lived experience, Deidre?
Has it been my lived experience to ask the question, who owns the narrative? Mm-hmm. Less asking the question and more a recognition of, oh, that's their narrative about this. More the distinction of narratives. Whose narrative is what, which is usually narrative is rooted in your worldview, how you see your perspective and what you see. And so I think whiteness creates this idea among white people that they're the default. Yeah. And so everything else outside of their worldview, outside of their lived experience, outside of the way they see things is considered other by them. So you wouldn't ask the question, who owns the narrative? There's just an underlying belief that the narrative is yours. Or we created the narrative, so it belongs to us. Yep. And right now, as so many things have happened in the news, there's a real emergence of what patriarchy has wrought. But this whole thing about ownership feels like capitalism, feels like patriarchy, feels like misogyny, feels it, you know what I mean? Just the word itself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not railing against people owning things. Like, that's not what this conversation is about. But it doesn't lead to a really openness toward divergent points of view.
That's exactly what we're here to talk about. And I am like openly still learning, and that's why we're having these conversations. You know, Deidre and I, and if you've watched our previous episodes, you've heard me say this before, but we were having a lot of these conversations in preparation for the Magdalene pilgrimage that we're hosting to the south of France this September. And we're having these conversations around how we're cultivating inclusive spaces, how we're standing in alignment with our own values and what we believe Mary Magdalene stood for, the Black Madonna stood for. We were like, we should really be having these conversations live. Why are we having these conversations in quiet? So I'm the first to say that I'm not here to try and like be perfect, and I don't think that's even what it's about. I think a long time I didn't engage in these conversations because I wasn't getting it right yet. I wasn't in mastery enough, or didn't have it perfect or figured out. And I think that's what prevents a lot of white people from like entering these unknown territories, the other territory, because that is exactly how I've seen it, as other, until now. And I still witness that in myself. I mean, it's like, just because you start getting into these conversations doesn't make the white privilege go away, or all these white lenses go away. They're still there. Like, but there is this new emerging perspective in me that's like all of humankind. And how do I be with the voices of all of humankind? Because I belong to all of humankind.
Right.
And a listening that happens there. Because can anybody own the Magdalene narrative? I see people trying. I see a lot of people trying.
Like trying to own an archetype.
Uh-huh.
Like an archetype is such a universal thing that I don't know that anyone can own it, especially because the idea of the Magdalene itself is so multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's the way the Catholic Church sort of absorbed the pagan cultural icons and stuff like that, and the meanings of those things, in addition to, is it Mary the mother? Is it Mary Magdalene? Is it Mary? Like, what is she exactly representing? This idea, or which person from the biblical stories is this Mary? Which Mary is this?
Yep.
Right.
Or
So,
is it even not Mary? Is it Sarah?
and right, and is it Sarah? So there's a whole thing that it almost gets all lumped into like a divine feminine archetype. A divine, there's I'm not suggesting that there's only one. There are more than one, but it gets lumped into a divine feminine archetype. How does the feminine get represented?
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like Mary Magdalene is accessible to modern women because she comes from a family of means. She's, it's like she has it going on and she chooses this.
Yeah.
That's a hard choice. It's almost easier to choose it when you don't have so much to give up. When you don't have to be so divergent from the roots, the place where you came from. It's almost easier to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's a good, almost like an example to follow of, you can be a modern person, you can be well off, you can be a person of means and still be committed and contribute to the principles, lead with these principles,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to look different, and how to stand in that. So it's absolutely helpful for me. I'll speak for myself. It is helpful for me to have the example of, it has been done before. Like, it's possible. It has been done. And so I just have to find my way into it, as opposed to, feeling like not having any examples. In the Black community, you'll hear people say representation matters, right? Mm-hmm. You want to see characters in movies and on the screen that represent where you're from, that represent your experience, that represent what you look like. Like Obama getting elected to the presidency was a big deal because for a long time it felt impossible. I did not think it would happen in my lifetime.
Wow.
And then it happened. And that just says, oh, there's a shift, there's an opening. And then, as always, as if you know the history of the United States, after some sort of great leap forward, there's a backlash. And we're in the backlash now to that. But we've survived the other backlashes and we will survive this one.
Yeah.
So just keep swimming. In the great words of Dory.
Yeah.
Just keep swimming.
I love it. I think in the question around representation matters, that really fits into this conversation around the Magdalene, because as I started to open up conversations with people for the Magdalene interview series, I I got 99% more responses from white women, and I got 1% responses from women of color until I started asking my questions differently. And so until women of color started to feel like, oh, this is someone who actually is going to listen to my experience and actually going to respect my experience and isn't going to. And it's been fascinating to witness because this is conversations from lived women today in the Magdalene space. Women of color who come in and teach in the Magdalene space have told me, like, oh, yeah, when I first started my TikTok, white women would just attack me for the way that I was expressing my inner wisdom and what came through for me from my spiritual lineages about who the Magdalene was, because it didn't fit the white narrative. And I think white women have no idea that, like, this is going on or that they're doing this because, as we said at the beginning, we assume we own the narrative.
Yeah,
And that hits hard. I am certain I have contributed to this in my time as an online business owner. I mean, you don't not contribute to it until you see it. And if you don't
right.
see it, you're contributing.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're not standing against it, then you're supporting it. Like there's no middle ground there.
And that has been
So,
so true. Reflecting on this and this element of where Mary has pulled me into my own underworld, it's hella uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I've said
yeah.
that. Oh, I've done that. And I'm hearing it totally differently than I used to.
Yes.
I mean, thankfully I do have all these feminine practices. Like, I think there couldn't be anything better than the Great Mother to like usher women into a new age where we're doing better when it comes to people who have different perspectives than us and different lived experiences than us. Like, the opportunity is so ripe, you know.
Mhm.
We're not really seeing it represented in our larger world, but I'm hearing conversations and I'm hearing women who are saying, I want to lead with care. I want to lead with alignment. I want to lead with unconditional love. That is what has been shown to me by spirit. Like, I think that then we have to look at this conversation.
You have to. And it's a muscle too, right? It's a muscle that you build, it's a practice, wax on, wax off. And you just get in there and get into the conversations and maybe get a little dirt on you and get a little muddy and be bruised. And then you retreat and you do your practices and you heal and you get back in there.
You
But I
get
think a lot of us are doing that. This is happening in so many places, which I know when you look at the landscape of the news right now, it can be very disheartening.
Yeah.
But if you look at the conversations that are coming up because of the things that are coming out, that are coming to light, like with the men who are recognizing that even though they're not one of the men, the 62 million or 42 million or however many it was, right? Even though they're not one of those men, it is likely that they know those men, and it's that they have to address those men.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that it's a response, like saying, oh, well, not all men is not enough. That's not going to move the needle. That's not going to stop anything. That's not going to transform the current dynamic. It's not going to make women feel safe. It's not going to make women it's not going to make women not choose the bear. In the you don't know about that? Oh, it was a big thing. Like last year, there was a big thing about if a woman is alone in the forest, would she choose to come across a man or a bear? And resoundingly, women were like, I choose the bear.
Yeah.
They feel safer with a bear. And so yeah, so it's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of it happening right now. It's very fertile.
Really is. I consistently feel very excited to be alive today. Like, there's a lot swirling, but there's also like humanity overall like we are striving to do better. I do see signs of us doing a lot better. That doesn't mean our work is done. It's not.
I think it's not ever done. As
Yeah.
long as we're here, it's not done. And one of the most probably resonant lessons I learned when I did landmark education was breakdown is your access to breakthrough. And right now we're in the breakdown, which means there's a breakthrough on the other side of this. But you got to keep swimming.
Yeah.
You can't just pitch a tent in the breakdown. You have to keep going. So,
And so for those of you who are new to me, I used to be MAGA. I used to be Mormon as well. I have been through quite a transformation in the last several years. When I was in that mindset, I was very like, oh, these issues, like people are just still stirring up trouble. Like these aren't real issues still. Let me be more specific. Like racism, I did not see it. And it's embarrassing to say. I get to just breathe for a minute. But that is the way I saw it. And
but you're not alone. The
that's why I'm
Supreme Court
saying,
basically allowed them to gut the Voter Rights Act because, and it's in one of the decisions that they felt we were in post-racial America.
wow.
That was the judgment in one of the cases. I think it was Citizens United or something like that. That was just like, yeah, we're in post-racial America. Like racism isn't even a thing anymore.
And I think just this, okay. I mean, we could really break this down. Whenever I work this through with ChatGPT and how to be in leadership around this, it tells me, don't try to convince people that racism exists. But I feel like there are some windows here. I wish somebody had broke it down for me. And honestly, Deidre, you kind of did. You were placed in an education role without ever saying, I mean, internally you saw it. You knew you were coming into an all-white coaching space. And so internally you said, like, okay, this means I'm going to do a more emotional labor. I'm going to have to do some educating. And you and I were both big sharers in that group.
Yes.
And so we regularly butt heads because I was regularly sharing from only a white perspective. And so you would just drop some things. You would say, yes, this has been hard for all women, for white women as well. Here's a little drop of a perspective of what it's been like for Black women specifically. And
right. The thing that pops into my mind the most was we were having a conversation about women in work and women not being allowed to work, or women being, women wanting to go to work, and that, and this, and I was like, well, Black women have always worked. Like, so when you say women, you have to account for the segment that doesn't fit the narrative, basically. Yeah. But that's a very Magdalene thing to do, as far as I'm concerned. The Magdalene principle or the Magdalene archetype is willing to stand alone in a space and say the thing or do the thing that other people might not understand or other people might not get. So if you're one of those people that finds yourself doing that, you are in the Magdalene energy. You're in that archetype.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm always insanely grateful to you for that, and then for partnering with me in these really big ways, and we're doing fun things together. But it took a lot of seeds over 3 years together.
Yeah.
And then some time for me to finally be like, wait a minute, what am I doing? How have I feel like I've been untangling brainwashing, and that is literally what I also believe is part of what happens, in our school systems and things. Nobody ever said post-racial America, but that was absolutely the attitude. Let's learn about, and when you're a kid, 1960s and Martin Luther King Jr. feels like an eternity ago. And
Especially
even,
because the people are dead,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Because
like,
if the people are still alive, then it feels more present. But
yeah,
when they're not alive anymore, then there's a hard to differentiate when you're 10
yes,
between Martin Luther King and George Washington. It's like
yes.
they're all in the past.
And they're all
And you
dead.
also have and they're all dead, and you don't have a children have a different sense of time
Yeah,
too. And so, yeah, it's hard to realize that it wasn't that long ago. I
no.
remember being in a conversation with my father, and he said something about riding the back of the bus. And I was like, yeah, I never rode the back of the bus. And he was like, you didn't? He was surprised that I didn't have that experience because I was born after the civil rights movement and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
so it hadn't even occurred to him that my experience was so divergent from his,
yeah,
which of course then informs your worldview. It informs your idea of what's possible.
yeah. The
So there's that.
60s were so not long ago. And I was thinking about if you have a 20-something-year-old who was opposing Martin Luther King Jr. at the time of his death, that
Mhm.
person is not yet 70 years old.
True. So do you know who was out there protesting the desegregation of schools? That's a famous person.
Who?
He's there's a picture of him. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys.
Whoa. Wow. So that is perfect. I mean, like, it just goes to show they're all around. They haven't gone it.
They haven't gone anywhere. Now, I don't know if his worldview has evolved over time. I don't know what his deal
Hopefully.
is.
Hope so.
Hope so. But the idea that it's not ancient history,
It's not.
like those people are still alive today.
And how does
They're
that affect
still they're
us?
still working at banks, approving loans or not approving loans. They're still in the mix, and they're most likely because they're older, they're in positions of leadership and authority.
And something I also was ignorant to. I had a client reach out and share this with me after this second Trump election, and now I've heard this as a narrative, and also it's been backed up statistically. So she reached out to me and she's like, she owns a corporation, couple hundred employees on the West Coast, and she's like, I'm so stretched so thin. I'm having to go out to all of our locations and deal with race issues and deal with people doing racist, hateful acts. And it was right after the election. And if you look at the statistics since Trump has been elected the first time, even the instances of racism have gone up, which says to me that there are people like that, this young 20-something-year-old who was against Martin Luther King Jr. during the time of his death, who were just sitting around waiting for the opportunity to be
Express this, that it was okay. Like if they feel like they now have permission because Trump says whatever he wants to say. And so they feel now emboldened, like they have permission to say the things that you couldn't say before, or that it was frowned upon to
yeah,
say before.
yeah.
So
So if it
yeah.
wasn't clear, and why are we talking about this in relation to who owns the Magdalene narrative? We're not here to go after any certain person, although I do think this element of spiritual narcissism and like my imaginary Magdalene friend told me this is how it is, so therefore that's the only way it is. We could do with a little less of that, but we're not here talking about that. What we're actually talking about today is that whiteness and white people have shaped and shifted and believed that they've owned this narrative for a very long time. She started being painted as a white person, painted by white people in Europe, and that is still affecting the Magdalene movement today. And so what, as you know, if you find yourself as a white spiritual leader connecting to the Magdalene, I implore you to go and do the work and listen to perspectives that are not of your own. Like Magdalene is begging us to do that work because she has been whitewashed and sanitized. white people think we own the narrative.
Among other things.
But it does real harm. As I mentioned again before, like women of color who are teaching in this space are receiving real hate because they're bringing in their indigenous African perspectives, or they're bringing in this, different, the people I've had on the Magdalene interview series have talked about these things, bringing in Shakti, or bringing in Kali from India in relation to Mary Magdalene and these things, because this is their lineage. And then white women have something to say about it. That's not the Magdalene I know. That's not the right Magdalene. She's not light enough. She's not full of lightness enough. And I think that we would all do better to widen the narrative.
Yeah. There's space. It's kind of like moving from the belief that there's enough for everybody. Right? And to recognize that I believe that spirit meets you where you are. Spirit is going to speak to you in the way that you can hear, right? So the way I hear might be different from the way you hear. And so spirit is going to meet me there and then take me where I need to go. And all roads they lead to the same place in terms of enlightenment or, awareness and that sort of thing. So it's fine. Wherever you started, just keep going.
Yeah.
Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because as I reflect on my journey, the more I heard it described once like this, and it felt the most resonant, that like, what do we have when it comes to following the divine feminine or finding out what our inner divine feminine is? We just get threads, and we pull on some threads and we find they end. Okay, maybe that wasn't the thread. We pull on some threads and they just keep pulling and pulling and pulling, and until we have enough threads to start to weave a tapestry that feels like a wholeness within us. And as I've done that journey and I first started pulling threads, I felt this, like, this is dangerous. Like, I think this is going to ask a lot of me.
And it is. But you're built for this. You're built for this. Right? We were just saying that before we started the call, your mission, should you choose to accept it. This is the work.
Yep. And I think it does. I think it asks so much of us. But what is on the other side, should we heed the call? Every time for me on the other side has been richness and beauty, and an access to depth and wholeness in myself, the kind that I actually didn't know existed. The more tight of a box I put myself into, the more anxiety and depression I struggled with, and suicidal ideation, despite checking off all the boxes. I got the husband, I got all these cute kids. Holy shit, I have a lot of cute kids, and I'm supposed to be so happy, but my box was so tight. I could not, I was all the tools, all the therapists, all the medications, whatever I could find. And what actually has dropped me into peace and wholeness has been going within, doing this deep, shadowy work, and then coming out on the other side and finding so much love and acceptance for self and all.
Doing what feels counterintuitive. It feels counterintuitive to go within. I got all these kids. I got things to do. And it feels very counterintuitive. And as you were saying that, it makes me wonder if this is just a rite of passage for being a woman. That you get the instructions. You're growing up, you get the instructions. You're like, okay, I got it. I got a plan. I'm going to do the things. and you check off all your boxes, whatever your boxes are. Our boxes don't have to be the same boxes, but whatever instructions you got, whatever you decided, you did all the things, and then you're like, big womp. Like, that's it. Like, like I did all the things. Where's the fireworks? Like, what? Like, this is it? It's just laundry and and taking kids around to their activities, and like I thought this was supposed to make me feel full and whole and rich, feel rich inside, and it doesn't. It doesn't. And then you have to figure out, like, okay, this wasn't it. That's not to say you just throw all those things away. It's not that those things are not valuable.
Right. Absolutely.
Those things are not built to give you that fulfillment, that feeling of satisfaction or being complete. It's very much, and I'm going to in the simplest way I can describe it, it's very much your instructions basically instruct you to look outside of yourself when what you're looking for is inside of yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's the road. And I really want to hear, because I know that Mary Magdalene, your Magdalene experience is woven into that.
Yeah.
Getting out of that box, recognizing that that you're in a box to begin with, and then figuring out how to get out of that box. I don't even think we have enough time. Maybe we have to do that next time. But I want to hear about that. I want everyone else to hear about that, about how Magdalene nudged you, right?
Yep. Her through multiple other goddesses that I feel she carries with her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And every single time was a mirror of like, oh, like, that's so scary. And then at some point, the yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I've loved having this conversation. I feel like I've been a little extra ranty, but you said you wanted me to say the things today, and I'm just so grateful for you, Deidre, and we are both so grateful to those of you who have engaged in this Black Madonna series. We see you watching. We don't actually see you. We see a lot of no comments and things like that, but we know you're there, and we know you're watching, and we know you're listening, and the conversations that are happening behind the scenes as a result of you tuning in and being brave enough to even listen into your body after that. It matters so much. And so tomorrow I want to extend an invitation. We are holding a Black Madonna gathering in honor of all of the different images of divine feminine through Black Madonna, as well as this Black Madonna Mary Magdalene principle, even that exists in women today and exists in, as Deirdre shared, like this principle, when women get to stand in these principles, there's no right or wrong way to do this, because you come from your own unique experience. So we're inviting you to, bring what images you have. If you have no desire to share images or share your voice or whatever, you're welcome to come and just absorb as well and be in this space with us. We'll also be honoring the women in Iran. That's a piece that just kind of came to my heart around, there's so much happening over there, and I don't pretend to know everything about it, but I know there's so much happening over there, and the women have been doing so much advocacy for themselves and for their own empowerment, and now they're caught in the middle of a global conflict on top of, just trying to make it in the world as wives, as mothers, as daughters. And so we're going to hold a gathering and kind of prayer ceremony for them as well. This is also a great space to come in and ask questions about what it will be like to be in France with us. We'd love to have those of you who this resonates. And so that link is found in the description. So you can go in there and register. It's a free event. We'd love to have you come on with us. If you do plan to bring an image, send me an email so I can have a little bit of a clue around who's bringing what and kind of shape that together. But we thank you. Deidre, you want to say anything else before we sign off today?
You've covered a lot. No, I'm complete. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and come through tomorrow. Come hang out with us.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I believe we will have to miss the Black Madonna Codes again next week. I will be traveling on the East Coast. So many fun things going on. And if you happen to be over in Detroit, over in Toronto, or over in New York City, reach out to me. I'd love to see you and meet you in person. But we'll be back in 2 weeks with the next episode of the Black Madonna Codes.
Yes. Yay.
Bye now.
Bye.